chronic stress is similar to carrying a heavy backpack everywhere you go all day long, right? And at first, you may not even notice that weight, but over time, it starts to wear you down. So your muscles may start to ache. Maybe your energy is drained. Everything just feels a little bit harder than it should. And chronic stress happens when that pressure never fully lifts. So that can feel like ongoing work stress or relationship tension. Maybe for some people, it's financial struggles or health concerns, right? But your body stays in this alert mode for too long, and that can manifest as fatigue or inflammation or just long-term health problems. Chronic stress is an endless uphill hike with a heavy load, and the key to managing it is not taking it away completely. It's about knowing when to set the backpack down, take a breath, and just give your body a chance to recover.
Welcome to the Advanced Women's Health Podcast, where we empower women with the latest insights and advice on holistic health. From cutting-edge medical research to practical wellness tips, our mission is to help you thrive at every stage of life. Join us as we explore topics ranging from hormonal balance and reproductive health to nutrition and mental well-being. Whether you're seeking solutions for a specific health concern or simply want to enhance your overall wellness, you're in the right place. Let's embark on this journey to better health together. This is the Advanced Women's Health Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of the Advanced Women's Health Podcast. Today, we're diving into a very important topic. It affects all of us. You guessed it, stress. This conversation is for everyone who's feeling overwhelmed, burnt out, simply wants to better manage stress in their life. So whether you're a busy professional, if you're a parent who's juggling multiple roles, or just someone who feels like there's not enough time in the day, this episode is for you. Together, we'll explain how different practitioners can help you balance and improve your overall health. So on that note, I know we've had a couple podcasts dancing around the topic of stress, but today it's going to be a little bit different. I'm joined by my fantastic group of experts. Today's episode is brought to you by the amazing wealth of knowledge that is the Advanced Women's Health Port Credit Clinic. We are all going to talk about how we can work together on collaborative approaches to healthcare and stress, and how that is ultimately the best way to heal. So you're going to be hearing today from our amazing panel of guests. We have Dr. Sasha, Dr. Ali, and myself, who are the naturopathic doctors at the Port Credit Advanced Women's Health Clinic. Then we also have Allison, who is our registered acupuncturist. Acupuncture uses a very unique approach to help us understand and treat stress. So we're very intrigued to hear how stress manifests in the body according to this ancient system of medicine. And last but not least, we have Natalie. So she is our nutritionist, and she's going to help us guide through that crucial connection between what we eat and how we feel, how that contributes to our stress, and then some practical dietary tips. So we're going to start us off, and we're going to talk a little bit about the naturopathic approach. We're going to give each of these women a lovely time to shine today. And we're going to start talking about the definition of stress. Stress is a very natural response to the demands and challenges that we all face in our life. It's the body's way of reacting to situations that require us to adapt and respond. And whether that's positive or negative stressors, so whether it's personal challenges or moving or changing jobs, this is all going to impact our stress response. And when we experience stress, our body does a couple of things. So without getting too sciencey off the bat, our body releases some hormones like adrenaline, like cortisol, help us to prepare to manage that situation. So this is often called the fight or flight response. And it's actually very helpful. It's ingrained in our evolution. And when we're in this fight or flight response, our heart rate will increase, our muscles will tense up, we're going to feel a lot more alert. This can be helpful, like I said, in the short term when you have a deadline or you need to react very quickly to something that's unexpected. But when this stress becomes chronic, when this is not just an acute phase anymore, and it's going to be a lot more long term, it's really going to take take a toll on our health. So ongoing or unmanaged stress can affect everything from our mental well-being to our physical health. And we're going to dive into that next because it's really important to recognize how stress is a normal part of life, but it doesn't mean that we just throw our hands up and give in. We can absolutely do things to manage how intense we feel the stress, how chronic and long-term we feel it, and ultimately to support our body from a holistic perspective. So Sasha, why don't you start us off? Why don't you tell us how chronic stress is different from that acute stress that I mentioned?
Yeah, for sure. So, like you said, stress in itself isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's our body's inbuilt way of helping us respond to life challenges. But the real issue comes up when that stress doesn't let up. So, that's where we start to see a major difference between acute and chronic stress. So, if we break down the two types of stress, right, the easiest way that I like to think about the two is like sprinting versus carrying a backpack all day long. So if you think of acute stress like a sprint, you're running. It's full speed, but it's a short burst, right? Maybe you're giving a big presentation. Maybe you're stuck in traffic when you're already late, or you suddenly get startled by a loud noise. Your heart is going to race, your muscles are going to tense, and your body is going to feel primed for action. And then all of a sudden it's all over, right? Hopefully you recover. That is acute stress. It's intense, but it's temporary, and our bodies are designed to handle it. But chronic stress is similar to carrying a heavy backpack everywhere you go all day long, right? And at first, you may not even notice that weight, but over time, it starts to wear you down. So your muscles may start to ache. Maybe your energy is drained. Everything just feels a little bit harder than it should. And chronic stress happens when that pressure never fully lifts. So that can feel like ongoing work stress or relationship tension. Maybe for some people, it's financial struggles or health concerns, right? But your body stays in this alert mode for too long. And that can manifest as fatigue or inflammation or just long-term health problems. So while that acute stress is that quick sprint, chronic stress is an endless uphill hike with a heavy load. And the key to managing it, which we talk about a lot with patients, is not taking it away completely. I wish I could take away your stress, but it's about knowing when to set the backpack down, take a breath, and just give your body a chance to recover.
I love that. I love your metaphors, Sasha. You always come with the best ways for our patients and the listeners to visualize the stress. So, with that being said, how does this stress become mental emotional symptoms?
Yeah, so stress doesn't just live in our bodies, right? It shows up in our minds and our emotions too. And when it lingers, it can manifest as anxiety. That can look like depression, irritability, fatigue, brain fog, and that can make life really overwhelming. So let's think of another analogy, right? Most of us have a smartphone, and if you think of stress, when stress is high, it's like having too many apps running in the background. So anxiety is like that notification that keeps popping up on your phone and it keeps you on edge. Whereas depression may feel like your battery is draining faster than usual, no matter how much you try to recharge. And then irritability is like a glitchy touch screen, right? Everything feels frustrating, even the smallest things. And for fatigue, that can feel like you're just on low power mode. So it's harder to get through the day. And with brain fog, I mean, the easiest way is you're trying to open up an app, but it keeps freezing. Like it is the most frustrating thing. It's there, you know what you want, what you need, what you want. And so that's when your thoughts, your feelings just feel a little slow and unfocused. So just like that phone that you would close up all your apps, you would recharge, sometimes even a reset to get things running smoothly. That looks like for our bodies and our minds, managing stress with rest, movement, mindfulness, or even meaningful connection.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the anxiety with the notification pings, that's why all my apps are like do not disturb all the time. I don't have any notifications on my phone, but no, that's a really great breakdown. And you're right. The last thing that you mentioned there, the rest, the movement, the meaningful connection, they're all the foundations that we preach about, but they are really so important. And then speaking of that, so some of this stuff is actually physical treatments when it comes to stress. So Allie, why don't we start talking a little bit about how stress manifests as those physical symptoms?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have any witty metaphors, so bear with me, everyone. I think a lot of the time when we think of stress, we automatically think of the mental, emotional manifestations of stress, but we forget about that physical component. So There are many different ways that stress can show physically, and I think this is just going to vary from person to person. But what we see in our office a lot are things like headaches, digestive concerns, changes in hormone balance and periods. We see weight changes, and a lot of sleep concerns as well. So let's walk through some of these to really get a good sense of what that looks like. And then for the listeners, you can kind of take a second and have a reflection of, okay, how does this present for me? And it's a really good tool to use in a stressful moment to say, wow, I'm feeling that muscle tension. I think that I have heightened stress right now. So with muscle tension, a lot of the times that is headaches. So whether that be that you're sitting at your desk for 8 hours straight with your shoulders to your ears and your head piercing forward, and squinting your eyes, or your jaw is clenched, or it's just the neck muscles and the head muscles are really tense, we see this present as headaches a lot of the time. I would say digestive issues is something that comes up a lot. So patients are saying, I'm noticing that I'm having a lot of new food intolerances, or I'm bloating all the time, or I have new acid reflux. Now I feel constipated, or I have nervous poops before I have a big presentation, or I have a lower appetite. So many ways digestion really changes because we have that direct gut-brain connection. So when you're chronically stressed, you're going to see that being affected. Sleep is another one. So there's kind of three ways that we see sleep change. Either it's difficulty falling asleep, so your mind feels like it's racing. We have the difficulty staying asleep. So people are waking up, and I feel like people always say it's that 2 to 4 a.m. window that they see themselves wake up. They're wired but tired. They're like ready for the day, but they know they need to go back to sleep. Or it's that you got a whole night's sleep and you wake up and you're like, I'm exhausted. I feel so unrefreshed. So that's kind of how the sleep disturbances shows up. Another one is weight. So this is, I think, a really talked about topic right now, and it's getting a lot of attention, but it is more than just the calories in versus calories out. And we know that stress is going to change your appetite. So we have our undereaters in times of stress, or we have our overeaters in times of stress, but it's about more than that. We have that cortisol response. And what this is going to do is it's going to cause the fuel that you're eating to be stored as fat. And this is going to put on that additional weight. And we see this a lot of the time in like that abdominal area. So people will say, I'm working out so much, but I still can't lose weight. And really, until that stressor isn't chronically there, you probably will struggle to lose weight, because why would we shed pounds if we're running from a bear? We always use that analogy. And it's so true. Until your body feels safe, it's going to be really challenging to lose weight. And then the last one is hormones. So a lot of the times for females, we see this as changing cycles. So spotting in between cycles, maybe people are missing their period, or their flow is a lot heavier than normal. But we can also see this present with shifts in our thyroid function. So underactive thyroid, but also overactive thyroid. So it can go either way because our thyroid is like a thermostat. So bottom line, many ways that stress presents in physical symptoms. So I think it's really important that when we look at ways to manage stress, we think about the physical symptoms of it too. So moving our body, eating proper foods, having good sleep hygiene, and then obviously like the mindfulness aspects and relaxation aspects, so that we can link the mind and the body together.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So many good things in there. I didn't want to interrupt you
many.
while you were going, but I was like, yes.
Yeah.
I find this is a really important piece to plug in as well, where when we're talking about stress, people can usually perceive things in their outside world that are very stressful, right? Like we have the work, you have an argument with your partner, you have the kids. There are stressors that we know. And I think if you were talking to a friend, they would be like, yeah, of course, you're stressed. There's so much going on, right? But then there's this internal stress piece too. And that is the other part of what Dr. Sasha and Dr. Ali were talking about, in the sense that if we're not moving our body and we're not eating properly, if we're ignoring these signs and symptoms, that's going to cause a different form of stress. It's just our internal stress. And that's going to make everything worse. So aside from the nutrition and acupuncture piece, which we're going to have some other lovely ladies jam about soon, what are some ways that naturopathic medicine can help with stress?
I can jump in here. Yeah, go ahead. So nutritional deficiencies is one that I think a lot of people are unaware of. So what I mean by that is low B12, low iron, low vitamin D. And this mounts a stress response because your body is trying to do its functions without all of the proper nutrients. So it's working in overtime to just function from day to day, but we're lacking in those vitamins or minerals. So that's one that is an internal stressor that is a really easy fix a lot of the time. But it does go hand in hand with gut health. I know, Sasha, you love a good gut health. You want to jump in there?
I was going
Throw
to
you in
start
there.
Okay. The bugs in your system dictate how you feel, what you crave, right? And so if there is that imbalance of bugs, we need to be able to address that. And how we do that in office is talking to patients and understanding, okay, are you experiencing bloating? What does your digestion look like? Like, what are your poops like? But even outside of just the common things that we think about gut health, what's energy like too, right? Because going back to the nutrition piece, if your gut health's amuck and you're not absorbing nutrients, that's going to impact energy. So there's that relation. And then maybe Dr. Alessandra, maybe you'll talk to us more about the blood sugar piece of things.
Yes. Oh, you read my mind. So, aside from the two aspects that Dr. Sasha and Dr. Ali mentioned today, we went through some other steps. We talked about the lifestyle stuff, the nervous system regulation. Those pieces, I think, are a lot more widely talked about when you hear about stress. And I think if you looked up any other podcasts about stress, those would probably be covered. They are super important, but one that I see a lot is blood sugar and insulin. We can broaden that to hormones in general, right? Insulin is a hormone. We kind of mentioned the thyroid a little bit. There's cortisol, which is a super hot topic nowadays. But really focusing on that blood sugar piece is very interesting because I'll get patients who are in that cycle of we're very, very stressed. It changes our appetite, either increase or decrease our appetite. It starts to change our food choices. That leads to blood sugar and insulin changes, which probably lead to reaching for more sugary foods or making some decisions around our nutrition and our habits with nutrition too. Not even the foods that we're eating, but like how often we're eating. If we're eating a lot more, so snacking a lot more, or if we're just going all day without eating. And my lovely patients listening to this who tell me that they just eat dinner when they get home and that's all they eat, that is going to put you into that loop of dysfunction where it's not just the external stressors now that you're trying to combat, it's the internal stuff. So it may be making you feel better in the moment when you reach for certain foods or continue down this loop of I'm too stressed to eat anything. I just need to focus on my work. But it's going to make things worse at the end of the day. And we're kind of just piling on to what we need to fix and what we need to start regulating. So yeah, I love that. I think that was a really good overview. I also want to ask, because I love talking to practitioners about this, what are your favorite botanicals or like naturopathic treatments for stress? Because I definitely gave away my insulin and blood sugar piece. I go over this with so many patients. I absolutely use our lab testing or continuous glucose monitors, not just in the context of weight loss, which is where I think it's mostly talked about, but I use it a lot for mental health and stress. And then for botanicals, I love ashwagandha. It's not one that I lean for as much anymore in my patient treatments because I do like a lot of the combinations, but I know that when I first got into this naturopathic medicine realm, it was like I was known for the ashwagandha. I loved it. It worked so well for anyone I recommended it to for myself. So I found that one to be really helpful with some cortisol balancing and overall stress resilience. But yeah, I want to hear what are your guys' favorites?
Botanically speaking, I love ashwagandha. I actually saw a funny video recently and she was like, stress, take ashwagandha. You have a bill payment, take ashwagandha. Like it's one that so many people go for. But I think another one of my favorites is passion flower or even skullcap, which can be amazing. It's gentle, but it's effective, especially when you're thinking about calming that racing mind in the evening. Rhodiola would be another one that I use, but I tend to be a lot more selective with it. It is quite stimulating. So great when you need to get up and go, but not ideal if you're already feeling edgy.
Yeah, I love that. I would say I use a lot of combo products as well. So it gets tough. I could ramble about this, so I'm going to try not to. But I really love stress formulations that are either chewable or in a powdered form because they work so quickly. So an example of that would be like L-theanine chewables or GABA chewables that are just in the moment. They kind of break you away from that stress cycle because you have to think about chewing them. And then the powdered formulations are going to have like some magnesium in there and some inositol to balance the blood sugar. So that's like our Relax Max formulation, which I love. But then I would say Eleutherococcus, which is Siberian ginseng. I call this a big hug. Like I find any patient that takes it is just like, they just take a deep breath, and everybody needs that when they're just feeling overstimulated, overwhelmed. So that's kind of like my go-tos individually, but a lot of them are combo products for sure, just because they work so well.
More well-rounded. You're getting a lot of benefits from the combo
Yeah,
products. I love Eleuthero. I was
absolutely.
actually going to say the one
I
that
love
I've
it.
transitioned more to from the ashwagandha is the Eleuthero because it is
Yeah.
lovely. Okay, amazing, amazing. So we'll come back to the end because I want to hear. We'll be talking about how all of us respond to stress and stuff like that. So I want to hear if we use any of these in our own lives. But for now, I'm super interested in speaking with Allison because I want to know about acupuncture. So acupuncture is something that naturopaths do get trained on in school, but I always tell my patients, let's leave it to the pros. So I love sending my patients to Allison when we need some additional acupuncture support and more specific support because she does this day in and day out. So Allison, let's hear about just in general, maybe we'll start off. How do you look at stress? If someone's coming in, what are some thoughts that are going through your head? How do you talk about stress with your patients?
Well, stress is a feeling that we all experience when we're challenged or overwhelmed, but it's much more than just an emotion. Stress is a hardwired physical response that travels throughout the entire body. And as you've just been hearing from the doctors, it has numerous physical symptoms. And if activated for too long or too often, the physical aspect of stress can actually damage your organs. And thousands of years ago, traditional Chinese medicine recognized this connection between our emotions and physical symptoms and linked specific emotional states with specific organs. TCM theory believes that if these emotional imbalances are not addressed, they will begin to produce dysfunction and disease in the organs that they are connected to. So, for example, anger and frustration, they are connected in Chinese medicine to the liver and the gallbladder. And the liver is responsible for the smooth flow of qi, or energy, which is essential to maintaining vitality. So strong feelings of anger, resentment, frustration, irritability, these emotions can disrupt the smooth flow of qi and cause what's referred to in Chinese medicine as liver qi stagnation. And liver qi stagnation can lead to the physical symptoms like headaches, especially migraines, tight muscles, digestive issues like IBS, a tight sensation in your throat or a sensation of a lump. Liver qi stagnation is probably the most common ailment that acupuncturists treat because it's so connected to our modern lifestyles. Pressure to perform at work, political or social turmoil, like we can all, relate to right now, relationship struggles, financial concerns, our health, our loved ones' health. I mean, the list of stressors just goes on and on. And then we have the emotion of worry and overthinking, which affects the spleen and stomach and can lead to qi energy deficiency. The spleen and stomach in Chinese medicine are responsible for making the qi. So when they don't function properly, and maybe you're not eating properly, we have symptoms like fatigue, poor appetite, and cravings, usually for sweet or carbs, bloating, and sometimes loose stool. The emotion of fear is linked with the kidneys and the bladder. Kidneys in Chinese medicine are considered to be the root of life, and they govern growth, reproduction, and longevity. So when you have weak kidneys, it can manifest as premature aging, infertility, sore, weak back and knees, and hearing troubles. And then prolonged sadness and grief, they weaken the lungs and large intestine. The lungs are the first line of defense against external pathogens. So if they're weakened by grief, you'll see symptoms like shortness of breath, a weakened immune system leading to frequent colds and sore throats, and skin problems like dry skin or even acne. Finally, anxiety. Anxiety damages the heart and small intestines, and the heart controls mental activity, sleep, and emotions. So anxiety can lead to palpitations, insomnia, speech problems like stuttering, and poor memory. And then just as unresolved emotions or stress can disrupt the organ systems, if the organs are out of balance, they can create emotional disturbances. For example, spleen Qi deficiency, which can cause the physical symptoms of fatigue, can also create the emotion of worry or overthinking things.
I love hearing that. I think no matter how many times we've heard it or in school or educated on it, the traditional Chinese medicine theories around how to treat stress is so unique. I think it's so interesting when patients listen to this for the first time as well, to hear a different way of thinking about stress that's a lot more internal. And then, of course, the treatment of it, the acupuncture.
Today's episode is brought to you by none other than Advanced Women's Health. If you are interested in diving in deeper to your health, if you are finally ready to feel like yourself, and you are finally over hearing everything's normal, everything's fine, and you want a deeper dive into your healthcare, then we are here to help you. We are currently helping patients in British Columbia and Ontario, Canada. But don't worry, if you're in another province, still reach out, get added to the wait list as we expand coast to coast. We cannot wait to work with you. Check out the show notes for more information on how to get started.
So there's a lot that goes behind acupuncture, as Allison had just mentioned, than I think people realize. I think a lot of people just think it's, needles going into certain areas of the body, right? They don't really know the connection there. So I'm really happy that you went through that. But why don't you talk a little bit about how acupuncture can reduce our stress?
Well, from a scientific perspective, acupuncture reduces stress by regulating the nervous system, balancing hormones, and promoting the release of neurotransmitters. And research shows that acupuncture stimulates the vagus nerve, which will shift the body from a state of fight or flight to a state of rest, digest, and heal. And acupuncture lowers cortisol, which is released in excess when we are in a state of chronic stress. And high cortisol can lead to a wide range of things, including weight gain, insomnia, inflammation, high blood pressure. Acupuncture also stimulates the release of endorphins like serotonin and dopamine, which reduce pain and improve your mood. And acupuncture regulates the production of melatonin, which is crucial for deep restorative sleep. So whether it presents as physical symptoms like tight muscles or headaches, or an emotion just like irritability, which you now all know is liver qi stagnation, acupuncture does absolutely help. And it's always my goal to create a sense of calm in my patients and leave them feeling more relaxed than when they arrive. So stress, whether it be physical, emotional, or both, is always something that I aim to address.
Amazing. And yes, I will say I've seen patients come in and they're a little hesitant, even in terms of stress with acupuncture, right? They're like, I want to explore this, but I'm a little nervous about the needle situation. And you set up the room so nice and relaxing. We can see part of the room behind you now, very comfortable table behind us. So this is a perfect part or piece to round out the acupuncture approach to stress. And I think the final piece of the puzzle that we want to talk about today, obviously there's many pieces of this puzzle, but from our practitioner perspective, is our nutritionist. So Natalie, why don't we pass it over to you? We'll start out with the same flow. How do you think about stress when you're talking to patients from a nutritionist perspective?
Yeah. So we often hear about stress, from a medical perspective, which we all kind of spoke about, a psychological perspective. And today we kind of heard a little bit more about, an acupuncturist perspective. But today, being the nutritionist, I really want to talk a little bit about the huge role that our food choices have on our day-to-day. So the way that we eat can help us feel more resilient, or it can make stress feel even harder to manage. So let's start with when we're stressed, we crave comfort. And for a lot of us, as was mentioned, we reach for chocolate or high sugar, high sodium snacks. And they give us that quick energy boost, and they usually make us feel really nice in that moment. But the thing is that long term, they spike cortisol, they mess with blood sugar, and they can actually make us feel more stressed. And I'm not here to tell you completely avoid all of these foods, right? I love chocolate. I think we can all agree that these foods are good and they taste good and they make us feel good. And I'm not about restriction or about making anyone feel guilty, but really the conversation that I want to bring in is how can we add balance and how can we add in foods that are actually going to support your body in feeling less stress or feeling like stress can be manageable.
Yes, and really nourishing our body to help us through stress is the goal that we want to achieve. But I have to ask, can you share why we crave comfort foods when we're stressed if that's not what we need? Why does that happen?
Yeah, a great question. And it's like, okay, we know that maybe this isn't the best thing for you. But I think we have all had the experience of when we're overwhelmed, we just reach for certain foods. So sweets, chips, something that feels warm that might be carb heavy. When we're overwhelmed, our brain just naturally looks for comfort, and food plays a really huge role in our pleasure and reward system. So eating, especially those high sugar, those high fat foods, they activate the release of dopamine, which was mentioned before, which is the feel good neurotransmitter. So this is completely normal. Like, we want to feel good, we want to feel comfort, and our bodies are wired to do that, to seek out pleasure when we're under stress, because it helps us temporarily cope with whatever might be going on. And the issue, again, isn't that we reach for these foods. It's that often it becomes our only coping mechanism. So sugar and refined carbs give us that instant dopamine hit, which feels great in the moment, but it also leads to energy crashes. And that crash makes us feel more drained and irritable, which can make stress feel even worse. So for some, which myself included, stress can really kill appetite. And when that happens, what do? We turn to caffeine, right? Coffee, like that's your only meal of the day. Those energy drinks, or we're like, okay, I'm gonna be a little bit healthier and I'm gonna go for tea, but it still has caffeine in it. And that's the only thing that's really keeping us going throughout the whole day. The problem with that is that it also spikes blood sugar, and too much caffeine can then mess with our sleep. And then we feel even more exhausted. And then this turns into a cycle of, that I can relate to, and maybe others here can also relate to. And then you're just like, I can't keep up. And then stress again feels even worse.
For sure. I think everyone at some point can relate to this, but when you know better, you do better, of course. So if people are going through a stressful time, how can they support that with their nutrition? What should they focus on?
I would say that the best thing they can do is focus on eating enough and eating regularly. So when you skip meals, I have experienced this, when you're really busy or you're really stressed, you find yourself even more exhausted and more irritable later. Or if you go all day without eating, and you mentioned this, lots of your patients, and then after you're like, okay, I had that one meal, but then later on at night, you're around food and you feel out of control. So having those predictable meal times is going to really help you regulate your blood sugar. It's going to prevent those energy crashes, and it's going to signal safety to your nervous system. When you skip meals or you're eating erratically, it puts your body into that survival mode, which then increases cortisol. So when your body isn't sure when it's getting its next meal, it stays in that heightened state of stress, which makes regulating your emotions and your energy levels even harder. So even if you're not really feeling hungry, if your appetite is low during these stressful situations, have something small and have something, every 4 hours so that you can keep your body out of that fight or flight mode. And it's whatever is the simplest thing. Like if that means a granola bar or you're like grabbing for whatever you have in your bag, packing snacks is the best thing you can do, then that at least is fuel for your body. And again, I've been there. When I'm stressed, I often forget to eat or I ignore hunger. And it's the worst thing that I can do for myself. What I've learned is that when I'm in that mind space, I need to prioritize nourishment. So making sure that I get that one solid meal where I hit that protein, that fiber, those healthy fats, right? All those basics of a balanced meal so that I can keep up with my energy needs. And that's really the best thing that you can do for yourself. So when your energy levels are crashing all day long, everything feels so much harder. And again, the best thing you can do is pairing your carbs with protein or healthy fats. So if that looks like a super easy, like veggies with hummus and some like whole grain crackers or some like nut butter with fruit, turkey sticks, something really easy that you can take on the go, then this is going to help you keep you stable, your energy levels stable, and also reduce those stress-fueled cravings. Or if you're not hungry, at least it keeps you going and you're not just on 1 or 3 cups of coffee for that day.
Yes, absolutely. Well, you already mentioned a couple of things because I was going to ask, are there foods that actually increase our stress?
Unfortunately, yes. And that's always something you're like, oh, really? It does that? So I want to think of ultra processed foods. So when we are eating too much sugar, excess caffeine, all of that really spikes your cortisol levels and it increases inflammation, which again makes stress feel even worse. And again, going back to what I explained earlier, it's tough because in that moment when you reach for those foods, it feels really good. But more often than I like to admit, we often feel worse after. And while undereating can also trigger stress, excess, especially in ultra processed foods, sugar, and caffeine can also increase stress levels. So we got to focus on that balance there. So processed foods and excess sugar cause a sharp spike in blood sugar, followed by crashes, and that roller coaster that you're going on throughout that day. It just makes it a lot harder for your body to adjust, and it leads to fatigue, irritability, and more stress. Brain fog was mentioned before. You can experience that definitely during that time. And when we're just having ultra processed foods and excess sugar, that can also overstimulate our adrenal glands, which again also increases cortisol and it makes you feel more on edge. So it's just like this whole cycle of all these different choices that are choices that we make every single day. And again, we don't have to completely avoid these foods, but it's just about paying attention to how they make you feel. So if you love coffee and you're always drinking it and maybe not having a meal before, take note as to, does that single cup of coffee with an empty stomach, does that make you feel jittery or anxious after? Or when you have a sugary snack, do you then feel like you're going to crash a couple hours? And that's really useful information as to what is working or isn't working for your body, and just being mindful as to how these foods or these habits are affecting you, the individual.
Yes. Oh, amazing. That was a really great breakdown of everything. So we have some takeaways for our viewers that they can stop listening to this podcast and implement some stuff today or tomorrow. Possibly we'll give you guys a little bit more time. What are some simple ways we can eat for stress resilience?
So, someone's already experiencing stress, and the last thing I want anyone to feel is even more stressed about food rules or food choices. To really simplify it and make it as simple as possible, it's making sure, again, that you are pairing your carbs. So starting your day with a proper breakfast that includes protein and healthy fats. So that can look like eggs with avocado or Greek yogurt with some seeds and fruit. This is going to set you up for stable blood sugar throughout the day. Then adding certain foods that are going to touch into those micronutrients that Ali talked about before, right? So magnesium, omega-3s, and then also we learned that gut health is really important. So when we're talking about magnesium, things like spinach or pumpkin seeds or dark chocolate, omega-3s, if you have seafood or seeds like flax and chia, and also different nuts, you can find it easily. And then when we're taking care of our gut, being mindful as to what foods are maybe not working for us, but also adding in pre and probiotic foods. So probiotic foods like yogurt, kimchi, sauerkraut can really be great additions to support your digestive system and your gut health, which then also supports your stress, balance. And then again, I kind of mentioned this, like having things in your bag that are ready to go, like have snacks that you can kind of forget. And then on the days when you're like, go, 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 you can reach in and you have something there so that you're not caught off guard. So I always like recommending like adult Lunchables, because people are like, I don't have time to make a meal or pack it before. But if you go to the grocery store, you're like, what are some snacks that have, different things that are easy to eat? So like boiled eggs, just cutting up your fruits and your veggies, having dip in there. It doesn't have to be unflavorful or not yummy. Yogurt with like nuts, seeds, and then any other snack that kind of brings you joy as well. You don't want it to be boring. And then lastly, it's like, what can you add to your day? And it's water. Are you drinking enough water? And that also is something that I always ask. I'm like, have you had any water today aside from that 1 cup of coffee or that chocolate bar? And we know that dehydration can actually make stress feel worse. And for those people that don't like plain water, I've heard it, we can add some herbal teas, electrolyte powders that have no sugar in them, and also infused water. So if you like adding some berries or some like herbs in your water to just make it a little bit more interesting. And then if that gets you to drink it, then that's exactly what we want.
Yes. Thank you for mentioning that. Mix in a water in between all of your coffees that we're pounding when we're stressed. So I want to finish off our podcast today by asking each of you, what are your favorite ways that you handle stress in your own lives? So I think this is really helpful. And as practitioners, we ride a fine balance of wanting to share these things with our patients, but not wanting it to seem like we are the beacon of perfection. This stuff still affects us as well. And we do get stressed. So for me personally, I know that when I'm feeling overwhelmed and I feel that stress starting to creep in, and maybe it's not as acute anymore, and it's starting to get into more days or more weeks, I ground myself in routine. I love my routine. I find that when we are stressed, it's really easy for us to put ourselves aside. So all of a sudden, you are going to bed later, waking up later, you're forgetting that morning and night routine. So I really focus on my non-negotiables, which honestly aren't rocket science, nothing too crazy. It's everything that we covered today. It's how am I eating? How am I sleeping? Am I having enough downtime for myself? Let's put the screens away. Stuff like that. So that's really what I turn to, respecting my boundaries. And then I know, as we kind of mentioned before, the naturopaths, some botanicals. I like to throw in some supplements. I'm not going to tell you guys which ones, because I feel like there's some people who might go take this and run with it. I have very specific ones that I know work for myself. And I think this goes for all of us. But I mean, me personally, I also have a healthcare team. Right? We can't be our own doctors. So those are kind of the things that I look for and turn to when I see stress increasing. Why don't we go through the round robin, kind of like how we spoke today, to make it easier? So Sasha, what about yourself?
So for me, when I'm really feeling it, this is something simple you can do anywhere, really, is to physically ground myself. So I'll do this super simple routine where I'll put my feet on the ground, deep belly breaths. There's so many different techniques. I'll do like a 4-7-8 and then no phone for at least 10 minutes. Sometimes, again, if possible, I'll throw in a walk outside, no podcast, no music, just me and some trees. And that really helps me come back into my body, especially when my mind is spinning. Recently, I was at HomeSense, and to justify my purchase of a journal, I was like, okay, let me start a mind dump. So I find, especially in the evenings, my mind is spinning, and I'll set a timer. 5 minutes, like no grammar, nothing expected. I'm just going to throw everything that I'm thinking on the page and just have a way of kind of like clearing my thoughts and calming everything that's going on up there. So that's what I've been reaching to. What about you, Allie?
Funny that you went that direction with the home sense comment. I was going to say the home sense was my de-stress, not the journal. No, I'm kidding. Okay, when I'm stressed, I feel super overstimulated by everything. So I'm an unplugger. Like, I'm going to have no phone the whole night. I just like to be home with my puppies and my partner. And I like to just have a very quiet, relaxed evening. I find as well, like having patient appointments all day long, it can be very overstimulating to talk that much in a day. And you don't get to actually like process your own thoughts throughout the day of patient visits. So that quiet time with a good bubble bath. I'm not a reader, but if I was, I would pick up a book. That for me is huge in resetting and regrounding. And then I'm a huge sleeper. Like if I don't get my 10-hour, okay, not 10, that was dramatic. But if I don't get like my 8 hours every night, I'm a grumpy monster. So I know people don't believe it because I smile a lot, but I need to make sure that my routine of sleep is there, or else I really feel that heighten my stress the next day, plus the home sense visit. So that's all from me.
Okay, amazing. And Allison, what about you? What are some things that our acupuncturist does to relieve her stress?
Well, just like you said, you can't be your own doctor. You can definitely not be your own acupuncturist. I can't reach most of the spots, but so I will go see my acupuncturist if I'm having physical symptoms of stress, like, a tight neck, headaches, that kind of thing. And then I find that nature, like walking in nature with my dog, either the woods or down by the lake, I can just feel an immediate release. I feel the endorphins flowing. So that's what I go to. And then also, like Dr. Ali, I have to be strict with my sleep hygiene. People in my house know, do not disturb me after a certain hour. I've got my book, I've got my eye mask, night shades, blackout shades. So yeah, I'm very strict with my sleep hygiene.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh, wonderful. Okay. And then Natalie, let's hear what we do for stress from our nutritionist.
Yeah, so I guess the common answer I should say is making sure that I eat a good meal, but I also, scheduling in the things that bring you joy. So for me, that can look like many different things, but scheduling in like what are some little things that I can do daily, like finding those moments of joy daily, and then weekly, and then monthly. Like tomorrow I'm going for a facial, and like that brings me joy, and that feels like recharge. Or going out and like exploring new foods, and that as well, like having different experiences, and just kind of trying my best to not let it build up. And then I'm like I can't handle it. Just having those tools kind of in the back pocket, and being able to, when I need it, to journal and move my body. A lot of that, the times it's just looking like me in my room, headphones in, music blasting, and I'm just like dancing and shaking all of the energy out. And that really works for me.
I love that.
Amazing. I know. You know what? Maybe we'll get the speakers going, import credit a little bit louder at the end of the day, and we'll have like a dance party. This is awesome. Me personally, hearing all of these, I feel like I want to go home and incorporate a lot of things into even my stress routines. Maybe I need to stop at Home Sense. Maybe I need to do that. Go for a walk. Right? I mean, nature is one thing, but Home Sense, no. This is amazing. And I really appreciate everyone being so vulnerable in this, because I think as patients, we have these one-on-one conversations, but it's also interesting to hear what we tell the general kind of patient community that comes in. Maybe it's not something that you've been told in your one-on-one visits before, but you picked up something today that you never thought of, and you want to incorporate that into your own routine. So overall, this wraps up our conversation today about how each of us approach stress from our unique disciplines. Thank you so much for bearing with us. This is, you may have noticed, the first podcast that we've had for Advanced Women's Health with so many people on it. So if you're listening to us through audio, you're getting a lot of different sound bites coming in. At least if it's over video, you can see who's speaking. But we hope that you enjoyed it. We hope that you understand now that by combining forces, we can really address a bunch of health concerns, but today specifically for stress from a lot of different angles and helping you not just manage symptoms, but support your body in finding that overall balance. So if you're looking for that collaborative, comprehensive approach to your health, we'd obviously be more than happy to work with you. You can book an appointment with any of us through our online booking at the Advanced Women's Health website. We are under the Port Credit Clinic. Or if you need a little bit of support with that, you can give the clinic a call, send us an email. Our contact info is also listed on the website. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we look forward to supporting you on your journey to better health.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you had as much fun as we did. And if you loved today's episode, share it with a friend and leave us a review. That is how we spread this message, and that is how we are going to revolutionize healthcare in Canada for women. Have a beautiful day and be well.